Welcome into the Locked On Knicks podcast. Gavin Shaw, Alex Wolf. The New York Knicks ending a 7-game losing streak against the Los Angeles Clippers. They had a fantastic opportunity to do it a game earlier against the Suns, but we're not going to harp on the loss, Alex, because this was a great weekend for the New York Knicks.
It's the story of the kids, right? Like, play the kids. That is it. This game fully demonstrated that. You have RJ Barrett, Cam Reddish, Emmanuel Quickley, Miles McBride, Mitchell Robinson, like Jericho Sims, everybody that was basically 23 years of age and under going off. We're going to talk about all of them next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Knicks, and today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered with more odds, props, and scores than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. And wanted to thank you for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day. And remember, we're now on YouTube, so if you have not checked out our smiling faces yet, please go ahead and do so, because it helps us out, and you think you'll have fun doing it. Anyways, I'm Gavin Shaw, a play-by-play broadcaster in the midst of broadcasting the Long Island Basketball Championships, and in 2 weeks, the New York State Basketball Championships. You can check that out on the NFHS Network. He is Alex Wolf, much more relevant to what we do here, the editor-in-chief of the greatest Knicks website out there, the Strickland, and very relevant to the Strickland success. The Knicks finding some success this weekend, Alex. A brutal, heartbreaking loss to the Suns. That was overall a pretty well played, fun game. And if your team tank, that was maybe for some people the worst way for it to happen. Me as a side Suns fan, that was the best way for it to happen. And then an absolute decimation of the Los Angeles Clippers. The game was going so well that Mike Breen almost had a heart attack when the Knicks lead was merely 12 points.
Yeah, let's just wipe that Suns one out of memory. I knew that we were at the certain point of the season when that one just didn't even register for me. I wasn't mad. I wasn't anything. I was just kind of like, whatever, I'm going to bed. But this game, we're recording this pod at well into the night here, and I'm still wide awake, baby. This game was fantastic. I think, Gavin, I'll throw it to you with just a quick question to start this show off. This game fully dispels the notion that the veterans do anything to affect winning more than any of the players under 23 years old on this team now, right?
I mean, I think, well, do you mean give me a specific example? You're saying like Miles McBride over Julius Randle, or you're just saying collectively, basically?
Let's say one thing that I think lost the Phoenix game, here I am saying we weren't going to talk about it, but one thing I think lost the Phoenix game late in the game, Cam Reddish still had fairly fresh legs. He was playing really good down the stretch of that game. Tibs, because of his stubborn substitution patterns, says, you know what this team needs right now? More Evan Fournier, and throws him in there for the final, 4 or 5 minutes of the game. And the Knicks completely cough it up during that time. And Alec Burks and Evan Fournier miss a number of defensive rotations, and the Knicks end up losing the game because Tibs had to go to his veteran security blankets. Whereas in this game, he plays that young lineup, the lineup that started the fourth and, took the life support, 12-point lead that had once been like a 26-point lead or whatever, and, ballooned it back up to almost 30 again with Deuce McBride, RJ Barrett, Immanuel Quickley, Cam Reddish, and Jericho Sims or Mitchell Robinson. All these guys 23 and under, and all of them contributed way more, both to the development of this team, but also just to actually winning this game than any of the veteran players did.
Yeah, so here's where I'm at on that. I think we know for sure that the reliance solely on the veterans is utterly destructive to the Knicks' present and future. I can say that very definitively. And when you play the groups in conjunction, and we still haven't seen a ton of that. Like I was writing down in my notes in this Clippers game, man, I'd love to see Evan Fournier honestly get some run in a lineup with Immanuel Quickley, with Cam Reddish, with RJ Barrett, with Mitchell Robinson. Like give him that kind of verve around him, and he would get just far more open shots than he's gotten all year. And he's still been one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. Because when we talk about the vets, right, at this point, we're talking about three. There are three left standing, right? It's Evan Fournier, it's Alec Burks, and Julius Randle. Maybe I'm PTSDing someone out of my head, but those are the three that I remember are currently playing. And it's such a mixed bag with those guys on night-to-night basis. Like Burks, I think honestly has been awesome these last 2 games. He's been a big reason things have looked so smooth. Fournier has his moments, and then to your point, he has moments where it's like you cannot justify him being on the court. Julius was transcendent against Phoenix, and then he got ejected, and then he sucked the whole game against the Clippers. So they are very, very up and down. What is beyond evident is that the Knicks can have success with their young guys. They are certainly better when they mix in the young guys with their starters. And what we've known the whole time, undeniably, it is far, far better for the Knicks' future to play their young guys, both for their development. And so you have a gauge of what you have going into the offseason. Tibs finally followed that logic, and the results were spectacular.
Yeah, I think that's basically what I'm getting at. Like, I'm certainly not saying, like, never play the veteran guys, which, again, yeah, to your point, it is only like 3 at this point. It's pretty much, it's like we're playing like Hunger Games and they're getting knocked off one by one.
Yeah.
But, it sort of seems like they should continue getting knocked off, to the point where I think that we should start seeing their minutes go down and down and down, because if these are guys that you think, I actually agree. I think that Evan Fournier has utility and he is going to be a part of this team next year. I don't think that they're going to, unless they find themselves, in the mix for like Jalen Brunson or something, and they need to get rid of Fournier just to free up that money. I don't know necessarily that they're going to do that, because I think that he's actually playing quite well and playing pretty much up to his contract lately, outside of that one really big stinker game recently. Burks, same deal. I think that he fairly consistently plays up to his contract, especially when he's played on his actual position and his actual role. And Julius Randle, has his moments too, where he looks still like the player of last year. But I think the big thing is just like, you don't lose anything by taking them off the court. So there shouldn't be this stubborn over-reliance on, even in this game, you still come away with 29 minutes of Julius Randle, 29 minutes of Evan Fournier, 26 minutes of Alec Burks. Like, why not start capping all their minutes? Put them in semi-bubble wrap and just start playing the young players, because it's not really affecting the bottom line. The Knicks look the best they've looked all year in this game, when they had that young lineup out there and they were just like running, attacking the hoop over and over, like not even really looking to shoot threes that much. They were just, all those guys, Cam, Quickley, RJ, were just relentlessly getting after the hoop in this game and, getting inside and creating looks for themselves and others. And it was just like beautiful modern basketball. And I don't understand why Tibs can't just be like, hey, let's do that more. Let's like try to have some fun. I don't know. Let's like, maybe I'll make my bosses happy. My job is probably on life support at this point, but maybe make it so I can actually see the end of this season. Because at this point, we've talked about a million times what it would take for us to fire Tibs at this point, and we were ready to fire him weeks ago. But it seems like he's probably going to make it to the end of the season. But I would argue that if he doesn't keep playing guys like Deuce McBride and Reddish and, Sims and all those guys 20 plus minutes a game, like at a certain point, even if there's only 10, 15 games left, I would cut bait with him, because those guys, you need to keep giving a look. You need to keep giving reps. This season is lost. Like, get them the minutes they need and get them some time on the floor together so they can start building chemistry for next year, when maybe things might actually matter. And things could potentially be trending in a better direction for the Knicks.
Yeah, and Alex, if they just all eat some Built Bars over the offseason, then I think it's a guarantee that the Knicks will have some success.
Yeah, it's pretty much the time when most people have given up on New Year's resolutions right now. I don't think that many of the young Knicks, particularly like RJ Barrett and Cam Reddish, have given up on their resolutions getting better this year. I haven't given up on my resolution of getting better with what I eat and how I snack this year either, because I've been eating lots of Built Bars. They're a fantastic snack. And I tell you what, if you haven't tried Puffs yet, you should try Built Bar Puffs. They are really, really good. They taste like a protein-infused marshmallow which is not something that I ever thought I'd be saying, would be available to me after eating chalky, gross protein bars for years. But it's the truth. They have incredible flavors. There's like yummy cinnamony churro. They got coconut marshmallow, which you already know is one of my favorites. Banana cream pie. They're all so tasty. And they're covered in 100% real chocolate and have just 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 4 grams of net carbs with a whopping 17 grams of protein in a marshmallow. You're eating a marshmallow bar. It's got 17 grams of protein in it. It is insane. So good. And at Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make sure to make it taste delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how, but they always pull it off. So if you want to get some Built Bars for yourself, go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15, and you can get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, Gavin, we are going to get into some more stuff about this game. We were discussing it before we started recording as to what player we were going to get into first, and we couldn't decide. So having the ball in my court, I'm going to just throw it to you and say, good luck, buddy. Pick out which of the amazing young players you want to talk about first in this game.
Oh, man, this was like RJ Barrett throwing it to Emmanuel Quickly 30 feet away from the basket with the shot clock expiring and saying, it's all you. But ironically, or maybe unironically, I don't know. I always misuse that word. I am going to start with Emmanuel Quickly, who I think maybe had his best game of the season. I'd have to go back and look, but I can't imagine he's done much better than 21 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists in just 28 minutes, 8 of 15 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3, 2 for 2 from the foul line. And it just, I don't know about you, Alex, but to me, it felt like the swagger was just fully back from him coming off a Suns game where he was really solid, where he was getting to the rim, where he hit that big 3 with just over 2 minutes left that probably should have been the dagger, but wasn't because the Knicks couldn't make their free throws and Cam Johnson is just ridiculous. But we don't have to talk about that. I thought he was just aggressive, like in transition, like he was hunting people, trying to get to the rim, trying to find a body and get to the free throw line early on, like nailing that long 2 that I think was converted to a 3 by the scorekeepers in Zubac's face, banking in that other 3. Like he just played with zero fear in this game. And I thought it was infectious, honestly. I thought what we saw Cam Reddish do in the third quarter, what we saw RJ Barrett do in the second quarter, Cam Reddish in the fourth, were both products of Immanuel Quickley starting off in the first and just coming out and kicking ass. And I think honestly, a lot of it is sort of having the Kemba of it all out of the way. And like, again, nothing about Walker as an individual, but just the fact that he had to play 22 minutes a game. And it felt like Quickley, whenever he was in, was really pressing because he's like, all right, I know, like, no matter how I play, I'm only going to get so much time. So let me just try and like score as many points as possible in this limited amount of time. And it wasn't working for him. And he was clearly in his head. I mean, the biggest, like, I don't even think I realized that he was still shooting this well from the free throw line. He's at 92% from the foul line. Brian Custer tried to jinx him on the ESPN broadcast, but he still made, I think, now 21 in a row. Like, the guy is a bona fide shooter. He should not have been hitting 33% of his threes all season. That tells you to such an extent that I think to some degree he was a microcosm of this Knicks entire season, and he was kind of putting on himself this team struggles and was just very, very much in his own head. And my hope is we're seeing him break out of it because he looked like the best version of himself from last year, but one who's just stronger and more athletic and frankly better than that guy.
Yeah, and how about, I mean, I thought the most impressive thing, the shooting was awesome, but the best thing to me, and we should like put a quarter in the jar for saying this, like for the millionth time this year, but like the most impressive thing was him getting inside and finishing inside. It's, I thought that was really the bread and butter of the team in this game, and IQ was a big part of it, was getting inside, establishing pressure at the rim, even if you're not making every single one of them, presenting a threat, getting to the rim. And that's what Quickley was doing. How about Quickley 5 games prior to this game? So this doesn't even include this game yet. 22 minutes per game, was shooting 51%, 44.4% from 3. As you noted, 100% rather from the free throw line, batting 1,000. For averages of 14 points, 4 boards, and 2 assists per game going into this game. And that can only have gone up after this one. So, I would say that the Quickley of last year seems to be back and then some, because I think that those point guard skills are really showing through. He had one really great transition dime get taken away by a so-so offensive foul call. on RJ Barrett, where he just sort of like pinpoint, like whipped it to him in transition. Had a number of other good passes, had some nice lobs to Jericho Sims, and I think he might have had one to Mitch too. I forget, but was really slinging it around, finding a lot of different guys, but also was creating a lot of different looks for himself. Had some mid-range takes. I don't remember if he made one, but I made a mental note that he took one, which is a good thing to see. A pull-up mid-range shot is a definite weapon for Quickley if he can develop it. Was popping threes from wherever he felt like. And then, of course, instead of going to the floater, which was the trademark last year, it just committing to just getting all the way to the hoop, taking contact, trying to finish through it and having himself a great game that way. So I loved everything about Quickley's game.
Alec, real quick, can you remember a 2-game stretch where he's gotten to the rim this much? Because like this season or last season, I don't think there's ever been one.
No, probably not. And this is what we've been like begging for. This like we're like the that little like SpongeBob reaction video. That's what we've been waiting for. It's what we wanted the whole time. That's us right now. It's like this is what we've been waiting for from him. Just like certain things we're waiting for from RJ Barrett. And maybe some things we're waiting for from Cam Reddish. I feel like that's the guy that we should talk about next. I mean, you want to talk about putting the team on his back when they needed him, that we've brought it up a couple times now, but, Mike Breen started to like have an aneurysm because the Knicks lead got down to 12. And I started thinking about, well, there's the writing on the wall. There's the third quarter collapse. Like here comes a nice little 8-0 run for the Clippers to start the fourth quarter. And then the Knicks just kind of slowly, it just crapped the lead away the rest of the way down, but didn't happen in large part because Cam Reddish had, I think it was 8 points all by himself, like a solo 8-0 run or something similar to that to start the fourth quarter. And I think the Knicks scored. He scored
11 points in the opening 4.5 minutes of the fourth quarter.
There we go. And I think it was like 8 points in the first like 2 minutes or something. I mean, it was something crazy like that. He came out ready to play in that fourth quarter. And, I loved the looks we were getting from him too. The 3-pointer, I think he took one that was a little wonky in the first half, but mostly was taking them straight up and down, like set feet, and hopefully that's some developmental influence coming from like Johnny Bryant and stuff, being like, dude, get your feet set, stop kicking your feet around like they're, like you're a wacky inflatable arm flailing tube man or whatever, but, in reverse. Because his footwork was not great on a lot of his shots. You could see from his old Atlanta tape too. But in this game was just kind of like chill, taking those shots. He did try like 3 times to do a jump stop and came down 1-2 with his feet, which, got him called for a couple of travels late. But otherwise, I thought he played a really clean game, had some really nice moves. I think probably the move of the game, I think they highlighted as the play of the game on the MSG broadcast of him kind of getting to the inside and just taking a very long leap across the paint and then finishing with his right hand on a nice scoop layup. That was beautiful. There's some really tantalizing things with this kid. And again, play the kids down the stretch. He's one of the main reasons, it's like, it seems like Cam Reddish of all guys is not someone that you want to put out there cold for 7 minutes a game. I think you got to find 15, 20 minutes, let him find a groove. And when he does, games like this are ones where he can really show what he's got, and hopefully he can start developing some consistency, because out of all the guys in this game, I mean, we've seen this from Quickley before. We've seen this from RJ before, at least in a Knicks uniform. This is the first time seeing Cam Reddish like this. And I really liked it. He looked like a potential like game breaking talent out there.
No, I think it's a great point. And when, I think it was 2 pods ago, I was going over some of his over under numbers on the Knicks and just how horrible they are, how bad his efficiency has been. And while saying like, you still see the moments, right? And I was still liking what he was doing. And it felt like he needed more time. He just needed the right game for it all to come together. And first against the Suns, which was ended preemptively by Tibs. And then against the Clippers, it's all come together. And the thing is, like, all these guys have flashes, right? Pretty much all young players in the NBA, unless they're just really, really, really bad, have flashes, because if you make it into the NBA, you're really talented. So many guys who wash out of the league have a great game here or there. The difference with Cam is his flashes are better than most people's flashes, right? Like just abnormal stuff. We can go back to the Forbidden Suns tape and say, like he just dusted twice in the fourth quarter, Cam Johnson and then Mikal Bridges, and guys like who had like pretty solid closeouts on him, and he was just too long, too quick, too good on that crossover, got all the way to the rim. I mean, to your point, the shot on Kennard, it looked like the legendary Julius Erving reverse layup. Like, not quite as good, but there was a little bit of that there. Like, his combination of length and shooting, and he can also play defense when he's locked in one-on-one. He's fantastic playing passing lanes. He's like literally one of the best in the NBA at doing that. He's not a bad passer by any means. I mean, going back to his high school days, that was one of the main appeals of him, that he could pass that size. And to your point, when he has his feet set, he can clearly shoot. Like, his foul line numbers are indicative of a guy who's potentially a great shooter down the road. And he's still super duper young. For the Knicks not to want to bet on this guy and invest minutes in him is insanity, because RJ Barrett is maybe getting to that point with some of the athletic pop he's showing. But outside of that, there's just no one in the same category from like a pure athletic freak perspective. And that's how you win. That's how you win NBA titles. You accumulate as many of those guys as humanly possible. No, I'm not saying Cam's going to be an all-star. I'm not even saying he's going to be like a long-term starter in the NBA. But if you're the Knicks and you've been struggling for 20 years now to find dudes like that, you owe it to yourself to find out if he can be somewhat in that range, or at least have moments where he is. And at least now they seem like they're on their path to doing just that. But if you want to bet on Cam Reddish making a future all-star team, I don't know if they have futures that far out, but they have plenty of other odds. You should check out Bet Online. Football might be over for the season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props, to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage and information you so desire. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Alex, it's indicative of how well this Knicks weekend went that we are now 23 minutes in or so. We have not talked about Mitchell Robinson, who shot 14 of 16 over these two games and got maybe a million offensive rebounds. We haven't talked about RJ Barrett, who had another great game against the Clippers. We could also talk more about Cam Reddish. Where do you want to go?
Yeah, maybe we should give Mitch some shine. I mean, it's almost unfair that we want to write the Suns game off, or at least I did, because that does kind of ignore the fact that despite the painfulness of the way that game, went down, Mitch was probably, I think maybe the best player on the floor. I mean, for either team, he was really good. 17 points, 15 boards, a career high, tying 4 steals and 3 blocks, and 8 of 8 shooting. I mean, he just like murdered DeAndre Ayton in this game. For as good as DeAndre Ayton is, and maybe Mitch listened to like our pod.
I wrote that in my notes. I was like, did he listen to the pod?
From like a few weeks ago, being like, oh, it'd be such a huge upgrade, blah, blah, blah. Pay DeAndre Ayton another $10 million. It's worth it. Like, yeah, maybe not.
From the locker room, bus driver, you go on this podcast?
Yeah, right. He's talking to Berman. But yeah, I mean, I thought that he had a fantastic game in that one. And then obviously in this game as well, I thought that he was no slouch too. Ending up with 12 points, 11 boards, 2 blocks and a steal, 6 of 8 shooting. A rather, I won't call it concerning, just kind of sad 0 of 6 from the free throw line, because he did a really good job of like generating contact on some offensive rebounds on putback dunks and stuff to earn those free throws, and then just couldn't convert on any of them.
Did you hear Mark Jackson's line about that? Is that
I didn't, because I watched MSG. I don't like Mark Jackson, but
that's fair. But yeah, he Mitch gave sort of a disgusted look after he missed the first one, and Mark Jackson's like, "You're not allowed to give that look if you're a 50% free throw shooter. What did you expect?"
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
good.
I would hope that Mitch could hit more, but yeah, it is what it is with him, I guess. I feel like it's almost lucky that he's a 50% free throw shooter at this point, based off how some of these shots go.
It does feel like a coin flip every time. It's just a line. It could go in. It could be 4 feet away. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it makes it that much more laughable that we were talking about him generating a 3-point shot at some point or another. But anyway, I guess it's possible for anybody. I don't know. Some guys that I never thought would have 3-point shots do now. So, but Mitch doing the things that he does well, I think has just been fantastic these last couple games. Just walling off the paint, providing the defensive, like the defensive final line of defense that he has always provided, But also, as you briefly mentioned, which I'll throw it to you to talk about, the offensive rebounding, I think it's just been like transcendent lately. And just the rebounding in general is fantastic. But specifically with the offensive rebounding between him and Jericho Sims, like they got some special talents as far as offensive rebounding right now on this team.
I mean, we're a podcast removed from me talking about Mitch not being on my dream Knicks team a year from now. When I see this version of him, I can't imagine not having him on the team next year, right? And that's the issue, is that sometimes, like tonight, that effortless athleticism that defined the first 2 years of his NBA career, a good chunks of the first 3 years of his NBA career, it was back in full. Like he just jumped so easily, but he still had the strength that he's added this offseason to finish through Ivica Zubac or Marcus Morris on one play, just grabbing his arm, and he still got a layup. And he showed off improved touch. Like he got like this little 1 foot push shot over DeAndre Ayton that I've almost never seen him take before. He had the play where he sprinted down the court, got the interception, and then went between his legs twice and just dribbled through a couple of suns. I've never seen that from him before. So it's the old Mitch combined with the new Mitch. I mean, my favorite moment maybe from either of these two games was when Cam Payne had seemingly a wide open shot at the elbow, and Mitch flew out of nowhere to block. I was like, yeah, there we go. That was the guy that we fell in love with when we were opening the show saying, hey, we're locked on Mitch every single day. Like that was that guy. And it was so great to see him again. I mean, crazy stat from Jonathan Macri. This was the 5th time in 10 games that he's had at least 8 offensive rebounds. That's not normal. There are all-star bigs who do not have a single game every season with 8 offensive rebounds. It's just crazy production when he's locked in and when he's on point. And to your point, Alex, like we always talk about Mitch, especially this year, as sort of a bully. Like he'll play up against horrible competition, then he'll disappear against the best in the NBA. DeAndre Ayton, one of the best in the NBA, and Mitch wrecked him. And that was really good to see. But again, for the Knicks to have any idea of what he's worth and for him to get what he's potentially worth, there just has to be some consistency down the stretch of the season, because that's been the biggest thing with him.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's to say nothing too. Like Zubac is no slouch either, and Zubac's actually a great rebounder in his own right. So, I mean, yeah, it's been really encouraging to see what Mitch has been doing lately. To move to our next guy here, RJ Barrett. Let's just talk about him. I mean, first off, can we talk about a plus 36 in 33 minutes? The closest starter to him was Burks with a plus 4. And that's mostly because RJ got to be there for the best. So Tibbs' sub pattern with RJ, actually, if all the things that I've hated about what Tibbs has done this year, lately I've been kind of liking it. It reminds me a lot of what he was doing last year when he would sub Julius out first. Now it's been RJ comes out first, so then RJ can come back like end of the first quarter even, or like beginning of the second quarter, and lead that second unit of all the young guys. Like him, Cam Reddish, Deuce, IQ, and either Sims or Mitch, easily like the most like fun bonanza of a lineup that I think that the Knicks have had this whole year. It's just like they just never stop. It's just constant motion, and the defense are just like switchy as hell and disrupting passing lanes, and it's just a beautiful lineup. And that contributed to RJ having that enormous plus minus in just the 33 minutes there. Shout out to Deuce McBride too with a plus 27 in 18 minutes, which is crazy. But like, I guess there's not too much different to talk about with RJ in this game, except for like, I liked that, they talked about this on the MSG broadcast, that there's no one higher on the totem pole than him anymore. And he finally knows that now. And he's finally playing like it. Like they acknowledged, like, I think it was Breen was talking about it. He's like, the thing with RJ is like, he's playing like he's the top guy now. And, he's not letting anybody else's presence on the team hamper anything that he wants to do, including Julius Randle. And then Breen, of course, made a point to say, like, last year it was warranted. Like Randle was amazing. He was, second team all NBA, all this other stuff. But like this year, Randle has regressed some, and now RJ is kind of like finding his own stride, and suddenly he knows like this is his spot now. Like this is his team basically. And I've been liking seeing that out of him. And, we've talked about it ad nauseum lately, and we'll probably continue to talk about it because it's the best storyline to finish this next season off with is him turning into this like alpha star type player. But, I just love the way that he's going about business. Even in this game, for as great as his 3-point shot has been recently, he wasn't relying on it at all because he just knew that he had barbecue chicken on him every single time. He would have Robert Covington, who was a great defender at one point in his life, but clearly has fallen off some. And he would be on RJ, and RJ would just be like, okay, like I'm just going to take you off the dribble every single time because you don't have that quickness to keep up with me anymore. So I'm going to get by you, and I'm going to draw a foul, or I'm going to, just finish through contact, or even just finish in general and not get a foul call, which there were a couple that RJ got his second technical of the year because there was one where he clearly got like hacked in transition and didn't get a call again. And the refs teed him up for that one. But, it's like he's becoming that dude in front of our eyes. And the best stat for me in this one, 7-7 from the free throw line. That's his swing skill at this point, because we now know he can get inside, he can generate the contact, he can finish through the contact, he can hit the 3-pointers, both off the dribble and, stationary. All he needs to do to become that like next level potential, like 25 point per game scorer, which sounds crazy to say, but all he has to do is start hitting like 80% of his free throws instead of like 65 to 70%. And all of a sudden, that's 3-4 extra points for him a game. And he starts hitting that upper echelon of potential scoring talents in the NBA. So another big game for him, another big, the Suns game wasn't great for him. So not a great weekend for him, but I loved him in this Clippers game for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's turning into an alpha in front of our eyes. What do the best wings in the NBA do? The Luka Doncic's, the LeBron James. They play matchup ball all game long. They say, all right, who's the weakest defender on the other team? Who do I need to call up to set a screen to get that guy on me? Oh, if they try and switch it, if they try to scram out of it, who's going to be wide open in that situation? And it's playing chess. And those guys are the best in the world at it because they're physically overwhelming. They can both shoot from three. They can both finish inside, and they're both transcendent passers, right? RJ doesn't check off all those boxes quite yet, but he is playing that style. Like he in the second quarter, again and again and again, he generated switches against Ivica Zubac, and he tortured Zubac, right? Beat him to the rim over and over and over again. Even when he missed, it took Zubac out of the play, and no one else on the Clippers had a chance in hell at boxing out Mitchell Robinson. So Mitchell Robinson just cleaned up anything that was off. But for the most part, RJ was getting there and finishing. And I just think, I mean, this is an evolution. Like I've been a doubter for a long time of RJ Barrett. I'm not anymore. Like I believe in this guy. Like I do think he can be, whether the next star for the Knicks means he makes an all-star team in his career and he's just a very good starter and he's the third or fourth guy in a title team, or if it means he's the first or second best guy in a title team, I don't know yet. And that's part of the fun that we'll get to find out. But the Knicks have a dude to build around. And that's saying that after the Suns game where he just shot horrifically, even in that game, there were all these little flashes and just of confidence, like him, like literally, like remember like Quickley booty jail a year ago. He put Jay Crowder, who's a strong dude and a fantastic defender, in booty jail before going all the way to the rim for a layup. But he's doing this against good defenders. He's doing this against bad defenders. He's just becoming that guy in front of our eyes. And if that's what comes out of this Knicks season, for everything horrible we've gone through this year, this season was worth it because the Knicks, again, haven't had that dude since Melo, and they haven't had it in a guy they've drafted since Patrick Ewing.
Yeah. It would definitely be what I would consider a success too, because I mean, he's not just like showing flashes anymore. It's literally just every single game, like you said. And I when you mentioned it, I noticed it a lot more in this game too. And I forgot to bring it up when I was talking about it initially, but he did. I mean, he was hunting those switches in this game. I mean, he was just constantly being like, all right, Sims, come here. And Sims is really smart too. Like I like how he sets screens more than I like Mitch even in that regard, because Sims knows like what the screen is supposed to do and he plans accordingly. So like if he knows that it's basically just to generate that switch, he's coming up there and he sets it so quick and then just evacuates. I mean, he is like 10 feet away by the time that, RJ is like ready to make his first dribble, and Mitch, sometimes the processing takes a little longer with those, but like Sims was so good at that. And that was what kept getting RJ these mismatches that he just kept feeding on. And, the main thing for me, and I guess this will be like my closing point on this game as a whole, like this game to me demonstrated, some really fun concepts that the Knicks can toy with the rest of this year, which is like RJ at the 4 was really dangerous because then there's so many guys that are mismatches for him on the floor at that point. Even his own man potentially is a huge mismatch. If he can generate just like not even a switch, just generate an ISO for himself. So I hope that once like Obi comes back that we don't never see that again, with RJ at the 4. And I'm also just like dying to see Quentin Grimes with some of these lineups too. So I finally have a little bit of excitement in me for the rest of this year. I don't know about you. I was really dwindling before this game. It was really starting to leave my body, like my soul leaving my body for the rest of the year. But my soul returned in this game. And as long as Tibs doesn't actively keep these guys on the bench or whatever, which it seems like finally he is making the switch to playing these younger players, I think we've got a lot of cool things to look forward to for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. It feels like he's been listening to the pod and he was like, "Oh, Grimes, Reddish, and RJ together. That sounds pretty cool. Well, we can't try Grimes now, but let's just throw IQ and Deuce out there with him." I mean, that was the group that went on that big, was it 14-0, 16-0 run in the second quarter, and was just thrilling. I mean, the switchability on defense with those guys and the activity, and I love right now whenever you get IQ sprinting into a dribble handoff with RJ, because we're just used to this offense being lifeless all year, right? And like an apathetic for long stretches. And all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, they're young and they're fast and they're skilled. And I mean, the underrated part of RJ at the 4 means you have 4 shooters out there at a time, right? Because Randall, Suns game aside, is no longer really a shooter. And that spacing just makes things easier for everyone. I mean, I think that's part of Cam Reddish's success, getting all the way to the rim. That's part of Quickley, like we just noted, getting all those rim touches paint touches the last 2 games. It's that the floor is wide open when Randall's off the court. And to your point, I think Jericho, even a little bit better than Mitch at having the awareness of how to generate that spacing. It's a conversation for another day, but to your point, I had a blast watching this game. I had a lot of fun watching the Suns game. And I am very much looking forward to the rest of the season. If we get more of this, I'm looking forward to Quentin Grimes coming back. And I'm okay if the Knicks lose some games, because it's not the end of the world. But that is it for this edition of the Locked On Knicks podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, please throw us a subscription, throw some likes, throw some comments on YouTube. We love the interaction. Until next time, be good. Peace out.